It's alive! No, I am not talking about the seedlings here under my grow lights, although they are looking pretty good. Well, besides this one that I dropped. Whoopsies! No, but for real, what's alive is my planting plan. So if you've ever worked in an office setting, you've probably heard the term living document. So that is a document that you constantly are editing or updating as information changes. So that's why it's alive, because it keeps changing. Typically, documents are not alive. So my farm planting plan is very much a living document. It is changing constantly, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on how I use the planting plan that I showed you in that How to Make a Planting Plan video, and how it lives and grows over the season. By the way, if we haven't met before, my name is Kiri, and I am going on to my second year of flower farming in a smaller area here in Western Washington in Zone 8A. Once you spend the time to calculate out how many of a plant that you need so that you can have the amount of stems that you need at certain times of the growing season, and you put it all out on paper, you've got your plan, and you're ready to rock and roll, that gives you a lot of really helpful information when you are in the swing of things, planting and growing things up, to know exactly how much more you need to plant out, how many successions you need to do, where you need to put things. So that's a really, really helpful guide. But what happens when seeds don't germinate, or you forget to water a tray, or you drop a tray like me this last weekend? So your plan should change as your life changes. You could go and replant that same plant, but you're going to be delayed by however long that seedling was growing before it died. So another option is to pivot to something different. So maybe you've missed the window to plant your hardy annuals, and so now you're in the time period of needing to plant those tender annuals. And so you should probably shift right to something that's going to grow well at that time in the growing season. But how do you go about that when you had already planned for something else? Hopefully you can see this here. I've got two versions that I was working through that are kind of similar. This one is beautiful because this is when I had ink for my printer, but I ran out, so here's my hand-drawn one. My growing area here, I've got 4 by 40 foot rows. I have 8 of them, and I had worked out exactly how much I needed to plant of certain plants and certain types of plants, so focals, greenery, whimsy, filler, support, and spike, to figure out how many bouquets that I could make with this amount. That is what I use to inform my planting plan here. So I already have reviewed this, and as life goes, things have changed a little bit and some things aren't working out. So I love snapdragons. I use them a lot, and so I have planted an entire row of snapdragons. That was in my plan. So I grew 3 trays of snapdragons. Snapdragons I give a 9 by 9 inch spacing. So 216 plants should fit here in this 4 by 40 foot row with a 9 inch spacing. However, this is my actual planting plan here of what I've actually put out in the ground. So I just remake this same template blank, and then I go through and put in what I've actually planted. And you can see here that snapdragons are not actually taking up an entire row. I planted out 216 snapdragons, but because I eyeballed the spacing, it is not actually 9 by 9. I think I went a little closer than that. So I had about 10 feet, maybe less, of open space in my snapdragon row. So my plan now is already messed up in that I have 10 feet that would have been open if I just stuck to the plan, right? If you've learned anything from flower farming, it's that you need to be flexible and that you need to know how to pivot. So I'm looking back at last year's planting plan. Some of the flowers that I depended on the most were snapdragons, rudbeckia, and Dara, and feverfew. Yarrow came in a little bit later on, and I relied on that quite a bit as well. But it's really interesting because I had quite a few crop failures last year. I basically had almost a whole row of crop failures. Larkspur, baby's breath, nigella, poppy. Really didn't do anything. Oh, I guess that's half a row. And I filled in with asters, and it was just fine. So this gives me hope that, quite a few of these didn't really do much, and I still was able to sell a lot of flowers and harvest a lot of flowers. So comparing last year to what I actually planted and so far what I've actually planted, I am almost doubling most of these flowers. So I think I'm going to be able to do quite a few bouquets. I did buy some stock seed that I was going to plant up, but based on the fact that last year I had quite a bit of snapdragons, right? What do we calculate that? 140-ish. That was enough, and then now I actually have 216, so I don't really think that I need any more spikes, so I might just save these for next year. That's how it kind of ends up working out in reality. And then we also have to be realistic and adjust for how much space we actually have. So I am limited by how much grow light space I have, so I had to cut back a little bit and adjust the plan. But this is what we'll be sowing today. And I'm going to make room for my own veggies too. Some other things to note that is a little bit different here is that the placement of some of these plants are a little bit different. So I had planned to have some of those more perennial type plants like Rudbeckia and Yarrow more towards this row 8, which is a little bit of a shadier location. This is closer to the road up here, and the soil here is a lot sandier, way more compacted, and not as good of quality as the soil here in these middle rows. And then, this becomes pretty clay and is very shaded. So I'm going to take that into account when I'm planting things out, and maybe things that I know can do well in not so great of soil, but that need a lot of sunshine, like zinnias, are going to go over here. And the other thing to think about too is that this is a lot more visually interesting because it's closer to the road, so that is free marketing. Love it. And I did end up planting up these rows here in the middle with some of these things that I was hoping to plant down here because my beds weren't prepared. And that is just reality. Another change is that I am planting up a whole row of dahlias because I plan to take cuttings. So it's a lot more than half a row, so we have to make some adjustments there. The other thing that I am making sure to do this year that I did not do last year is to update my planner. And I got this planner for like $5 at Home Goods, and I was like, yeah, just need a planner, right? But I'm actually kind of liking this planner because it has a habit tracker in here. You can see that. And I actually use this to track my planting labor time, which is just a quick and easy way to see how long I'm spending planting things out. And I'm making sure that I am writing down how many of what type of plant and species and variety and all that, and where I sowed them, so that I have a really good log, trying to note some things that I've noticed too on how things are growing. I'm also using the planner to, kind of track out when I should plant things. It's helpful to do that so that I make sure that I'm planting the right amount of things for my plan and also not overloading my grow lights. I'm just trying to keep better records so that I can look back on this next year when I'm planning and make sure that I am more efficient and planting things when they need to be planted and planting things that grow well for me. So it's the end of March. I do feel like I'm a little bit behind because I haven't started a whole bunch of those more tender annuals. But I gotta tell you, I think that I started things too early last year. So I'm going to start things a little bit later this year so that hopefully they are happier when I plant them out. So not a whole lot of activity going on there, but I am about to take some dahlia cuttings. I hope you found this update helpful, and you don't have to have a really complicated plan to keep yourself on track. Just pen and paper can keep you pretty organized. Spring has definitely sprung around here, so I am so excited to open up the flower stand. It is happening very, very soon. So I hope that you stay tuned for that because the flower content is coming. Alright, thanks so much for watching. See you next time.